Today, we have Diana Poulsen joining us from Denmark because, well, all of her work is about awakening and ascension. Welcome to all of you who are tuning in to assist us in rising and raising collective consciousness. I'm Jennifer Regular, the host of Awaken and Ascend, and I'm so excited to have you here, Diana, to talk about inner union and how merging different aspects of ourselves beyond self can elevate us into self-mastery and to really finally coexist with source itself. So welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, first and foremost, and for inviting me. And you are such a, shining light to the world. And I'm just always, when I meet you, I'm so happy in general, rejoicing you and your work. So yeah, thank you so much, first and foremost.
Thank you so much. And for your service to humanity, I understand you actually pioneered the integral liberation method, which I find fascinating and also really exciting because I find that we are in a time of cultivating an integrated higher consciousness model of living. And we all want to feel liberated, right? Free from obligation and fear and anything else that might be pulling us down and limiting us. And so you're talking about elevating, into merging aspects of ourself beyond the self. So I'm really interested in where our conversation is going to go today. But before we get there, Diane, I'm really curious about how you got here. What lit your path and inspired you to be doing this kind of work?
Of course, of course. It's always, it's always a fascinating and funny story, right? I believe that we always have it inside ourselves, right? From the first day we are born, it's already there, right? We already know. So I could say I was lucky that I have very open parents, right? So my father was my first meditation teacher. So I kind of, it was already, right, opening. It was not like closing me. But of course, I did all the normal things, right? And like all the best grades at school, best grades university, all the normal things, and my career. And the turning point for me was, I think, like to many people I know, 2012. That was when we had this energy shift. We all know, right? But at that time, I didn't know. But I just yeah, I remember I was so busy. Like I was living in one country, working in another. I was commuting 2 hours per day. I was speaking, yeah, two foreign languages, landing the third one. I was starting my own company at that time. It was about Pet Connect, connecting pet owners. So it's something totally else. And then it was Easter vacation, and when I just felt, I felt so tired. I really didn't care about any of this. And I just felt like, that really doesn't make sense. That really doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
And when I speak to people and then, I teach, I always remind them, but it's a choice, right? It's a choice, but I just made a choice. It doesn't make sense. It has to be something else. And I already had a strong background in law of attraction. So automatically, like in 1 month, I was already living in the city I wanted to move, a little calmer, by the sea. And I got another job opportunity, very creative team. So everything shifted like that from that decision in a month. And I think then journey started, right? When I couldn't stop, I just started, to see things I didn't see before. And then I went with famous path in Spain, like pilgrim path, but now like all spiritual speakers walk where. And then I just see, okay, people live differently, right? People, where is another way? Where is another way? And then I went to, specific island in Spain, and I had this huge awakening experience. And then I left my job, and I never turned back since then. And then I went to travel to India, unlanding things, relanding, and since then it's been evolving. I think we're always evolving, because that liberation, as you mentioned, it's a very high state of consciousness. So it's a journey, right? It's a journey which we are walking and enjoying at the same time.
Yeah, and I find that such a common path that we've, that we become disillusioned by the work we thought would make us happy, or that we had to do, or that we maybe went to school for, even, or followed in our parents' footsteps, or thought that was the right thing to do. And it just doesn't fuel us. It actually drains us because it's not aligned with our soul path. And so there's always that little inner spark, though, that kind of moves us into what is our soul path and what would inspire us and what we actually love to do. And so it's always interesting to hear people's stories and their path into that, because like you say, it's a journey, it's an adventure we go on. And quite often that does involve some sort of travel and seeing differently and how different people live and the culture and the values, and just expanding our view and our horizons to give us a better vision, right? To kind of inspire a vision, I think, and help us to realize that it's not just, always what's just in front of us all the time, that we can habitually create these routines and just keep moving through life, just trying to get through the day, kind of more in that survival kind of mode, and not really taking the time to reflect on the conditions it would take to help us thrive, to inspire us, to enliven us, to really fuel us and motivate us to live our best life, and also be able to do our best work and become the best version of ourselves. So how did you come up with this liberation method?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for asking. Since I was a child, like everything, I'm coming back to childhood because, I was already very intuitive child. So, and we had this kind of sometimes assignment as children. We would write to each other, what do you want? What do you really want? What do you most want? And I always wrote freedom. I always wrote freedom. Like no one else wrote that. And I don't even know what, I didn't even know. And then, it was a time when, I was learning a new language, and I got a book for children about Buddha. And it was his story when I read, how he was searching for freedom and liberation. It was, yes, that's what I meant. That's what I say, what this journey is very long, right? Um, so all this journey somehow invited me and inspired me to look at different systems. So if you see my work, I structure very much my work based on 5 elements. Elements what we see in Ayurveda and in astrology, like, fire, water, air. And and also I was so fascinated about different systems. I started astrology, then human design, the enneagram, Ayurveda system, gene keys. So of course chakra system, and through these studies, and of course like working myself and seeing that and seeing all these pieces, I always believe that the truth is beyond that. Who we are, true nature is beyond any system, right? But when we look at any system, it's like what kind of baggage we have, right? We look within, we accept it, we transmute it, and we move beyond that. So there's so many ways and so many methods and so many teachers and teaching towards that liberation. What liberation is, we're also different aspects and stages of that. But for me, it's really freeing inside of ourselves, our mind, our emotions, as you said, our conditioning, and seeing beyond the reality of what we thought it is, right? When that conditioning came and we were children. So it's kind of a deep topic, but I just believe what, no matter where you are, if you're listening, what's your next step, right? What's your next step of liberation? Yes, for some it will be very inspiring Buddha story and enlightenment and all these practices. It will be, yes, this is what I want. For someone else, maybe, I want to be free from going to a job from 9 to 5, right? For someone else, I just want to be, myself, my most authentic version, and enjoy life. For some, maybe I want to travel. For some, I just want relationship where I can be myself, right? So there's so many different variations, and I really, I support different people, different stages of life, and just like, what's your next step? What's your next step? Where you want to feel more free in your body, in your mind, in your emotions, in your spirituality. So that's a question for everyone, who is listening, because it's always next step, right? It's always next step. And then, okay, what can I do? What can I do?
Yeah, the connection is so important, and I find that in a lot of ways we become disconnected from parts of ourself, our values, our integrity, and also disconnected from each other. And there's so many different aspects of ourselves, different parts of ourselves, some we've kept hidden, some we haven't even met yet, some that, that we may be using and operating from. And then there's like all of the different pulls and tugs on parts of ourselves. Like we leave parts of ourselves in different places we've been or in relationships we've had, or we've leaked our energy out. And it can be very discombobulating, confusing, and self-doubt starts to arise. And we start questioning, our identity and who are we and what are we supposed to do and what do we actually value and what's actually meaningful. And so I love the integration piece, how we bring all of that together, how we can bring all those aspects of ourselves together so that we can also come together in community as well, and bring forth that unity consciousness. And that begins with the inner union, I think, right? And that's what you really specialize in too, is that inner union. So how do we bring that back? How do we actually integrate all of these parts of ourselves that might have been pulled away? How do we start to call our back our power?
Yeah, I could probably again maybe use another structured system, because I just feel sometimes it's easier for people, and I really like coming back to basic and our energy centers, the main energy centers, right? That's how I have written an ebook on inner union, and it's free, and the people can download that. So that explains that model, and coming down to our low energy centers and just figuring out, of course, these kind of difficult topics, why we don't feel safe, right? What happened? Why do we don't feel safe? What is our connection to other people? Are we overgiving to other people? Are we like keeping very strong boundaries? And of course, our personal power, and what happened where, why we don't feel safe to be ourselves, as you say, authentic selves, and bring our work to life. So it's really like looking at these shadows, right?
Mhm.
Looking at, of course, the inner child. And I know this topic is now very, like everybody's speaking about it, but it's still very important to look at that, because our traumas, they define how our nervous system is functioning, right? That affects our brain, that affects everything. So this piece is kind of, it's very important, and it's not a piece that you can take in one day, right? It's a huge work. And when another piece, this is high energy centers, this is our connection to source or divine or God, how we call it. And again, layers or layers, why we don't speak, why we don't allow, why we're afraid, why we overthink, right? So again, it's another different kind of work. And then our heart, right? Our heart center. And this is where all our, kind of traumas and wounds and heartbreaks. And I always speak about, the main heartbreak what we all experience, which is separation from source, or God, or divine, right? And really going deep into that, and somatic experience of that can open our heart, right? And then we connect what I call human self, or servant self, these low energy centers, and our highest self, or leading self, the centers that open us to divine. And in our heart, we connect and we unite. right? Vertically we unite. And then, of course, there is also like feminine and masculine, which is another huge topic, what I really love, and our inner feminine and inner masculine, and another dance, and which is our like father issues and mother issues, issues with God, issues with life, issues with, yeah, wisdom and compassion. And then like we create that union, how I imagine. We connect from above, we connect into the heart, and then the same with feminine and masculine. So from that connection, it just, yeah, we become more peaceful.
Ah,
We become more self-secure. We don't need this power, like, oh my God, I'm powerful, I can do it, right? It's not necessary,
yeah.
right? It's just no longer necessary. It's just, you know, it's where. You don't need to shout it out. You don't need to prove. Then we become less triggered, right? Because then we can come back to that in a union. Of course, people can hurt and say bad things. Of course, that happens. But when we come back to ourselves, then it just becomes easier. And you know, from that place, then naturally things are unfolding, right? We don't need to push for that, like, yeah, the next business goal or income goal or next whatever happens. It becomes naturally. We're so in tune with our body, with our heart, with our mind. So we know the next step, and things, yeah, naturally come into place, but we are no longer attached, right? We're no longer attached because, of course, attachment is another thing why we're attaching, because we are not in a union. We are not fine with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that return to center and our heart center. And we
Yeah.
refer to that and the inner union that happens and the inner peace that comes from that. That's such a beautiful, beautiful place to be in. And one that we can get to. We can get there. When we allow it to, we welcome in that opening, the opening of the heart, and being able to expand our capacity to receive all the blessings that are available in that space. I found it really interesting too about you talking about the servant self being our human self. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, so our human self, and I say what's the role of it? Like we need that part, because you know, I also like worked with many people who are very connected to these higher realms, right? And then sometimes it just, yeah, it gets a little shaky, you know, on a human realm.
Yeah.
Certainly we start not seeing things as we are, not seeing reality, and then like somehow when I was writing this ebook, and I just somehow it came to me that servant self. So we do need human self to kind of, as I said, with personal power and simply see reality as it is and drive us through activities in this world. But it's not our leading self, right? Leading self is, some people will call it soul or higher self, or you know, even connection with God, or source, or divine. So it's coming from where, right? Something was the most pure version of ourselves, the wisest version of ourselves.
Mm.
And that version is always knowing, right? It could be, I can give examples. It feels like, oh my God, I want this job right now. I want this job, right? I really want this job. But like your higher self knows that, okay, maybe you're not ready. Maybe your nervous system is not ready. Maybe a better job is waiting for you, right? So when we listen to that, we can a little bit let go, right? But when opportunity appears, we need that servant self, human self, to take that action.
Ah,
So this is how we see we are working with each other in union, right? It's just like the question, who is leading, right? Are we listening to that inner wisdom, to that higher voice?
yes, listening. Listening and being open to receive that message. You mentioned the ebook a couple of times. That would be such a
Yeah,
wonderful thing to offer to the audience. And
yeah.
we can put a link for that in the show description. Can you tell us a little bit more about accessing that and what people will find in the book?
Yeah, I thought what maybe, yeah, it could be easier both to read and also see the powerful illustrations that my dear friend made. She's also like tuning in and creating these illustrations, which sometimes, yeah, I just feel so beautiful and also healing. And that ebook gives, yeah, explanation of a model, but also self-reflection exercises, questions. So a little bit more in detail explains low energy centers and servant self, what it means, and how we self-reflect about that, and how we shift things. Also, reflecting about the higher centers and, connection with divine God source, going deep into the heart, and even going into feminine and masculine. So a lot of things covered, and it's a free gift. So I think it's very relevant to share, if people want, yeah, a little bit, some people are more visual or they want to read and self-reflect.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful and generous gift. Thank you so much for being able to offer that. And for all of you that are tuning in and want to access that, we'll have the link below in the show description. We'll also have Diana's website. And of course, there's my guides and information down there too. Diana, can you share a little bit more about how you work with people and how would they be able to connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. I think the easiest way is the website, because they can find everything else where, and we can find some evergreen programs, what I offer. And then I open one-to-one spaces once in a while, where I am tuning in exactly where person is and where they need to go. And I apply all the systems what I just mentioned, starting with astrology, human design, gene keys, enneagram, Ayurveda. I just need to remember myself. And
Get all
and
together.
and hopefully after that, guiding a person to go beyond that, right? Not to attach to any system, not to say, oh, I'm a manifestor, I'm like that, or just go beyond. And really, my intention when I work with people is to empower them to connect with inner guide, the
Mm.
most important inner guide. When we have that connection that I have spoken, when it just, I mean, everything becomes easier, right? So I really, that's my biggest intention.
Well, thank you so much. I love that. I love that. And I wonder if there's anything else that you want to share with us on the show today.
No, I think it's just like wrapping up, maybe message like wishes. Yeah, for anyone who's listening, thank you so much. If you've been listening until now, that's already beautiful. And in this time, and yes, we have a short span of yeah, listening to someone. And yeah, if that message touched you, so just ask yourself, what's your next step? What's your next step? And intuitively we've been speaking, we've been tuning in energetically with you. What's your next step to that in a union? And then what you really, really want. But I also, yes, work with people about is the true heart desires, right? So what you really want and what's your next step. And that's, I think, enough. And then take that step after, maybe after looking at my ebook, or after like a few days, take that step. And yeah, that's it. Your all answers is inside.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you shared and your beautiful energy and insights and your free guide that we'll have down below. Really appreciated you being here today, Diana. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for each and every one of you, I'm so grateful that you've been here joining us today as well. If you haven't already subscribed, you can do that and keep listening to all of these amazing guests that we have every week from all around the world to help us elevate in mind, body, and spirit. I'm Jennifer Regular, and I look forward to seeing you again. And I'd be really interested if you wanted to share what your heart desire is in the comments. Sometimes having it written and shared really amplifies that being magnetized towards you. So I'd love to hear, what's your heart desire? See you again next time on Awaken and Ascend.